All right. Welcome back to the Minutemen podcast. Today we're just talking about getting into USPSA. We have one of our instructors, Rob. We are a firearms training company, and Rob's instructors. Off with Rob to let him talk about his experience with getting into USPSA.
Happy to be back again. So I shot my first match in, I think it was 2 years, in July 2024 was July. Was first match there at Mill Creek. And
you made masterclass within your first year or year and a half, right?
Yes. So I hit, my initial classification was B. I did hit B that year. And then that following spring, I got A class. And then, July is when I hit M masterclass. It was something I'd always wanted to do. It was kind of like everybody, like the ego factor. Like I always was able to like find an excuse on why I didn't want to or couldn't want to go shoot a match. My dad had shot competition, USPSA, back when it was IPSC here. He was shooting matches in the 80s. So he would talk to me about that all the time. And that's kind of how I got into shooting in general, was from him.
Nice.
So I started training with, Colin, right?
Yeah.
Coworker. So him and I, we kind of started getting into like the performance shooting where, we're just essentially using, what we use in USPSA, the balance of speed and accuracy. So we would do, like tier 1 concealed, like they post drills, build drills, modern samurai standards, stuff like that. We kind of started tracking our performance that way. And one thing led to another. And we kind of were like, I think at this point we need to go shoot a match and, see what that's all about. And it's been a crazy ride ever since. Shot a couple majors, try to shoot at least 1 to 2 matches a month, just kind of depending what life allows. And here we are.
I know when I want to say the first match I got into was probably right after I got back from basic training, so 2015. So of course, I was super cocky. I thought I was going to do amazing, and that was not the case. So progression over time, I went to a few matches, wasn't as invested, but from 2015 to 2020, I went to a couple matches a year during that time period. But kind of like you, I was watching some of those Instagram or more YouTube at the time than Instagram videos on training, and that got me to be practicing more on my own time. And then about 2020, that's when I started, 2019, 2020, that's when I started getting more serious into it. I shot my first major match, which was at Mill Creek in 2019. That was my first ever level 2 match. And got kind of like in 2015, I thought I was going to do pretty good. At that time, I was doing pretty good at my locals, go to a major, and it was not necessarily the case. But it's still a lot of fun. It's still a very good training value because I get to see how I pair up against other people. I get to see how I actually progress as a shooter versus just, oh, that feels good. And I'm like, no, who cares how it feels? What's the results show? And if I'm progressing, great. So those matches really do kind of bridge the gap between just, shooting a qualification that so many people think's the gold standard to actually competing against someone else who, oh no, they're a better shooter than I am. So
yeah, no, that's kind of how, in a roundabout way, kind of how my progression was. Like I mean, years ago, like shooting was just that. It was just shooting, going to the range. Like it was just, which I think is still fun to do from time to time. Like, I don't think you always have to, go like with a plan and try to execute the plan to get better. Like sometimes you do just want to go shoot with your buddies or whatever. So that's what I used to do. It was just go out and shoot. And it was just feeling based shooting. It's like, well, that felt good. So that's acceptable. Colin and I started shooting a lot more. And that's when we introduced the shot timer and hit factor to our training. And it kind of graduated into, the pass fail type drills too. Yeah. And then that graduated into, going to shoot matches, hit factor scoring, the balance of speed and accuracy. Because that was kind of our thinking is, firearms instructors and, we shoot a lot. And, at our agency, big fish, little pond.
Yep.
C post was like the only thing before we started like actually shooting, drills and standards. Like that was kind of that was it, if somebody shot like a 50 out of 50 on C post, it was, you're a super good shooter. And I don't want to discredit anybody for being able to shoot 50 out of 50 on a police qualification, because to some people that may be a good goal that they want to try to attain, but there's so much
Yeah.
more
And, if you're,
on the other
if the
side of
first
that.
time you go qual and you shoot a 30 out of 50 and you're like, man, I don't know if I'll be able to pass this and keep my job. And you're like, my goal is to hit 50. And then you hit 50, you're like, that's progression. That's still a good goal. But like you said, there's more to it. So it's,
Mhm.
I don't, like I said, I don't want to discredit people who can do that, because it's like, but I don't want that to be, the glass ceiling of shooting where you're like, oh man, I hit 50 out of 50. I guess that's it. It's like, no, there's more to it.
Yeah.
So once you hit that goal, keep pushing, keep doing other stuff.
Right. Especially with like super easy time standards and accuracy standards, right? That's where it's, the time standards, accuracy standards on a lot of, law enforcement qualifications are very generous. So that's with USPSA, it's hit factor. So you're always trying to bump it down and bump it down and bump it down.
Yeah.
It's, like I said, it's the perfect blend of speed and accuracy. And I think that's kind of why I got addicted to it, is because it's a road that never ends. It's my first match. I placed like dead center in the middle of the pack. I think it was like 34th out of 68. And I was like, okay, I want to be doing better than this. So you can really down a rabbit hole with shooting matches. And it doesn't have to just be USPSA. I think there's a lot of shooting disciplines, a lot of organizations that you can benefit greatly from shooting. Steel challenge. I've never shot an IDPA match, but I think if you're using it in the way that it can be used, I think it could be beneficial.
Even some of those matches that aren't as dynamic, it's still beneficial, better than just standing at a booth. But like you said,
100%.
those low time standards. I remember when I first got into shooting, first time I shot like El Presidente, just the goal was 15 or 10 seconds. I want to say like, intermediate levels like 15. Yeah. And
Super
like,
generous.
you're a really good shooter if you do it in 10. And then today I shot it in a class fire and did it in 5.25 seconds or something like that. And if you told me 10 years ago that I was going to shoot it in half that time that I was struggling to make, when I was struggling to make 10 seconds with hits, now you're telling me I'm doing it in almost 5 seconds with good hits. So like being able to see that progression, it's real, and that's one of the classifiers for building your ranking. But same with like a build drill. I was training at the range yesterday, and I was mad I had a clean build drill in 2 seconds. If you told me that 10 years ago I was going to be mad I had a clean build drill in 2 seconds, I would have been happy I had that. And now I'm like, man, I think I can cut more time off. And then by the time I left, after I did a couple, I was at 1.8584 seconds with a clean build drill. And I was like, all right, there we go. Now it's more like what I'm wanting. Like when I was like mad, I had a clean build drill in 2 seconds. I'm like, man, that's a big difference than when I first got into just shooting. But with that, getting into shooting, how difficult is it to get into the sport of USPSA?
It is not difficult at all, really. Colin and I kind of just figured it out on our own. I mean, it was a quick Google search, how to get into USPSA shooting. I think with social media the way it is nowadays, like everything is on social media. So I think it's a lot easier for people to get out to matches. Pretty much all over the continental United States, there's going to be probably at least one club within driving distance for most people. And all you have to do is go to Practice Score, create an account. And from there, you can search your area, see what clubs are running what matches. And from there, it's pretty simple. I think probably years ago, it was more word of mouth. So it's probably a lot harder. But like I said, with social media the way it is nowadays,
yeah, it's
extremely attainable.
Not too difficult to find a match. I think the hardest part for new people is just not knowing about Practice Score. Once you find Practice Score, put in your location, a ton of matches are going to pop up. You can narrow it down if you want USPSA, Steel Challenge, whatever it is. There's a ton of matches out there. But you can find something, if you're living in a major metro, you can probably find a match within an hour of you. Did you know that there is a USPSA club in New York? I'm not talking about this. I am not talking about the metropolitan area. I mean, literally in New York City, where you can look If you move right, you can look downtown, or you can look and see skyscrapers, One World Trade Center, from the club location.
That's pretty insane. I probably
I
wouldn't have believed you had you told me that before
I
this
found
podcast.
that out when I was looking at matches. I tried signing up for it. It was I got wait, but I found out they had a level 2 match there in June. I was trying to go to it just because I'm like, yeah.
A level
Yep.
2 there as well?
When
Wow.
I saw that, I'm like, I'm gonna go shoot a match in New York City, because I'm like, who knew one of the most anti-gun cities in the world, or at least in the U.S., had a level 2 USPSA match in the actual. And
That's crazy. So I'm assuming it's all probably low cap, though, isn't
there's
it?
like 100 some odd people there, 100, 200 people. So
I'm not like low cap for like magazines.
So I want to say when I looked it up, it said everything was capped at 10 rounds. So
okay, yeah, that's kind of what I figured.
But with that, I mean, you could still go shoot that match, and like you can find a match even if you're in a metro that hates guns. So if you're like, man, I got one gun, it's all I have is a booth that I can shoot from. Hey, I can still go shoot a match even in a city that LA. There are a ton of matches in LA. I ran into some guys last year at Nationals who are work and live in Los Angeles, California, a super anti-gun area, and there are a ton of matches there. And he's like, and for them, he's like, they don't care at those matches. They don't care about the mag limit. Like, California has a mag limit, but no one checks and no one cares about the match because you can have grandfathered magazines there. So,
right. Nice.
So it's
California surprisingly is, for the politics of the state, surprisingly there is a lot of pro-gun people there, and I think a lot of that is just the population. If you have that many people in such a small or big of an area, like there's definitely going to be the, I guess, the drive for it. You have that many people, and I can see like classes all the time in California, all the time, everywhere. So it makes sense.
It's not too hard to find. It's not too hard to get signed up. The prices for your local matches, what, $20 to $40? So
yeah, 20 to 40. I've seen them as low as 15, and like you said, as high as 40. The good thing though is, it's a good way to get into it and like understand the sport and meet people, is if you help set up. A lot of clubs will comp your match fee.
What about equipment? What is there a big barrier of entry for equipment to get into the sport?
No, not at all. Essentially, if somebody owns a gun, chances are that gun is going to fit into any division within USPSA. I mean, they've got Perry optics, which is your standard polymer striker fired guns. Limited optics, your 2011 guys. They've got revolver, single stack for the 1911 guys. PCC if you're running pistol, caliber carbine. I think I mentioned revolver production. So if you have like a Glock with no red dot, or limited a 2011 with no red dot, there's tons of divisions. So like I said, chances are if you own a gun, chances are you can go shoot a USPSA match in a division.
If you have that gun, and even if you don't have much equipment, it's probably at least comes with, I'm guessing most guns now come with 2 mags. Some are coming with 3. There's some cheap guns that still come with 1, but on average, most guns are coming with at least 2 magazines. So if you have that gun and 2 mags, don't go buy Uncle Mike's holster, but you have a cheap $35 Kydex holster or whatever it is. You can put your spare magazines in your back pocket. And most stages for USPSA, the max round count is 32 rounds. Sure, if you miss some rounds, you might have to take a follow-up shot, but typically your average length of rounds you need will suffice with 2 15-round mags. So maybe you pick up a third one just in case, but if you were running 2 15-rounds mags, you're good, and you can use your pocket to hold the extra magazine. You don't have to go buy a specific belt, a specific mag carrier. You don't have to go get 30 mags. Most of your guns are probably going to work with that. Even if you show up with a MP shield, okay, maybe you need a couple extra mags than just 8, or than an 8-round mag, but still, you could rock that. Show up with your concealed carry holster with that gun and 2 or 3 mags in your back pocket. You're going to get through most of the stage at your level 1 match with that. So
the barrier to entry when it comes to equipment is really low too. I've seen it all at matches. There's guys that are shooting appendix concealed carry There's guys with, pancake holsters, with a belt that just pulls through. I mean, really anything that you have is more than likely going to suffice as long as it's safe. So as long as your holster covers the trigger guard. I know my first match, I just used my duty belt. Essentially is all I did with the handcuff still attached to it. And I will say it's one thing I try to tell people, go watch a match first, to go shoot a match first, figure out if it's something that you enjoy, something that you like, and then spend the money. Because even after that, like, you shoot a match and it's like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to get into this. This is a lot of fun. There's really, I mean, you can go to the pro shop, Steger Pro Shop, and find belts for $40, mag pouches, or like you can find them on the cheap there, for like a starter pouch, like $20-25. So then, I mean, you're pretty much there. I think you can be probably a little over $100 in like a full belt setup. So even afterwards, it's something that's still, pretty cheap. And I would say most level ones are running 6 stages. So on the high end, say 30, 32 rounds, like if you bring 250 rounds of ammo, like you will leave with ammo left over. So it's not like you're having to spend hundreds of dollars on ammo a weekend.
You can say average price $20 for $20 to $30 worth of ammo. You're looking at $50 for, an afternoon of shooting. And like I said, I don't tell people to go buy stuff. If it's your first match, show up with what you have. Chances are, if you need something, someone can loan you something. You'll run into a guy there who's nice and gonna probably have extra stuff you can borrow. And you show up to enough matches, you're gonna run into people who are like, hey, I heard you say you needed XYZ item, whatever it is. I used to use that. I upgraded since then. They might just give it to you. They might sell it to you. So you can get into it for pretty cheap. It's not, I know people used to say, oh, it's just, you have to buy your way. No, you don't. You can run this with just stock equipment, and you don't have to go put yourself in debt to get into this sport.
No. And I will say it's probably one of the friendliest environments I've been in, at least USPSA. I think most shooting disciplines, like shooting sports competitions, it's extremely friendly environments. I'll say a lot of my really good friendships right now stem from competition shooting. So everybody's kind of out there, having each other's back. If you have a piece of equipment that goes down, more than likely, somebody's got a toolkit that they're going to loan you, or a spare piece of equipment that they can loan you. I've even seen people that are using the same guns. It's like, hey, my gun went down. Is it okay if I borrow yours? And before every stage, they just go over to the safe table, change out guns, and then, they keep running. So I think that's kind of talking about that, like from my experiences, I was always worried that it was going to be such an intimidating, and it can be intimidating. It's something that, a lot of people have never done before. They're putting themselves out there. But after I shot that first match, I'm like, man, all those people were super friendly. Like this wasn't as bad as I was making it out in my head.
And it's fun. I mean, it's just a fun sport. I would rather someone go spend the money to shoot a USPSA match than go shoot the same amount of rounds just from a bench at a local range. So it's a great training tool. It's a great way to find like-minded people. It's not like if you're at you work a job where you can't talk about guns. No, you go into a group of people who you can talk about guns all you want, and you can bounce ideas off them to see what works for you. So
100%. Yeah. I know that'll kind of be in probably one of our next podcasts when we talk about training, but the amount of knowledge you're going to gain from shooting matches is second to none, especially when you can identify. And that's one of I said when I first started shooting, I was shooting at a B class level. And then I started taking back what I was learning from my match performances to my training, whether it be live fire, dry fire. And, now I'm shooting M class. So it's addicting. Like it really is. I know after I shot my first match, I was like, okay, why haven't I been doing this sooner? And everybody else that I've taken, that's been there. At the end of the match, we get back to the truck, taking your gear off, you ask them, so what'd you think? And it's the same response that I had after shooting my first match it's why haven't I been doing this sooner? And next thing you know, like those guys are shooting matches and they're not even letting you know that they're shooting, and they'll talk to you, be like, yeah, I shot a match last weekend. It's like, hold on, you've been doing it on your own. And I'm like, yeah, dude, like I love this. So
Yeah, you
it's
almost
really
like
great to
you just
see.
cheated on me. You didn't tell me you were going to
And
a match. I would have shot it with you. So you're like, yes.
yeah, 100%. And it's crazy that I mean, I've even seen because I think that's one thing I want to talk about too, before I forget, is a lot of people they have this
Yeah.
mentality of, okay, well, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. I'm not. I'll be like, hey, let's go shoot a match next weekend. It's like, well, I'm just not ready. I need more time. I need more training. And the reality is, as
Yep.
long as you can be safe with a gun,
100%.
you can go shoot a match. I tell people like, so what do I need to be able to do? And it's like, okay,
Yep.
the 4 firearm safety rules. Can you clear a malfunction by yourself? Can you reload and unload your
Yep.
gun by yourself and keep it in a safe direction? If you can do those, 3 things, you can go shoot a match because nobody cares. I think that's another thing too, is people are like, well, I don't want to suck in front of people. And
Yeah.
it's like, nobody cares. Like, you can shoot last place, first place. Everybody out there may be differences. And, some people may be trying to get a match win. Some people may be able to just, they want to go out there and train for, their concealed carry or their job. But everybody still has the same goal, and that's to have fun. So I think I've seen, there's been,
100%.
10-year-old kids out there shooting matches. I've seen 80-year-old men shooting matches. I've seen, on Instagram, there was a girl in a wheelchair,
Yeah.
and I think it was her dad pushing her through the stage. She shot a match.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a guy that I think it's Nub Gunner.
Exactly.
He doesn't have hands, and he's out shooting matches. So it's not exclusive. Yeah, you get guys that are, national champions, world champions, they win major matches, they're out there, and then you get the guy that just wants to go hang out with his buddies and have a good time.
Yeah,
Like it's those two things and
I
everything
broke
in
my
between.
hand, so I had a
it's
cast
not
on my hand
exclusive.
for a month or two. I still went and shot a match. I knew I wasn't going to do as good as I normally did because I was only shooting one-handed. But you can still do it even if you have whatever limitation. Even if
Yeah, and for you, that was an opportunity to, test out your performance with one-handed shooting. So you may not be as competitive at the top of the pack, but it's like, okay, this match is kind of a mulligan. I'm not testing match performance. I want to see what I'm capable of doing one-handed shooting. I've seen people do that even healthily. They're like, I'm going to shoot this stage weak hand only. I'm going to shoot this stage, strong hand only.
Just to backpedal a little bit, when you said, regardless what gun you have, you can probably shoot a match with it. Even if you have a 22, you can go shoot Steel Challenge. So if you're like, man, all I have is this 22 that my dad got me or whatever, and you're like, man, that's fine. You can go shoot Steel Challenge, which that is a subcomponent of USPSA. Or you're like, hey, my 5-year-old wants to do this. A 5-year-old can go shoot, or I don't know, depending on the size of the 5-year-old, but like, a 5 or 7-year-old, you can take them to Steel Challenge and have them shoot Steel Challenge with a 22, and that's a good way to get into the sport. And then once you want to progress, if you want to go shoot USPSA, that's a good stepping stone right there. If all you have is a 22, or you're looking at little kids, so they can still get into it.
And some people are intimidated by the movement of USPSA, and some clubs, they do run more limited movement or more stand and deliver stages. And some clubs are very dynamic in the way that they do things, lots of walls, lots of barrels, lots of movement. So I think some people, they get intimidated by that, and I would say, still give it a shot. But if you are adamant that you don't want to do that, then absolutely go shoot a Steel Challenge match. You are standing in all Steel Challenges, as you are standing in a box, and it is different stages with steel set at different distances, and you just stand in a box and shoot steel.
You can walk it. Yeah.
No, I've seen plenty of people walk and take their time. And I will say, like, your first match, 2-3 matches, depending how comfortable you get with it, I think it's highly advised that you take your time and you don't try to race through it. And I've told new shooters before, they're like, okay, so what should I be working on this match? Or, what should my goal be at my first, match, 2-3 matches? And it's like, just be safe and have fun. That's it. Keep your muzzle down range. Unless you're shooting, keep your finger out of the trigger guard and have fun. Like that, if you can make it through your first match without DQing, that alone is all a success.
We're asking. Have fun and be safe. That's it. But I think we're getting close to the end of this. You got anything to end this with, Bob, or we good to call it?
No, I think we pretty much hit everything. I just kind of end it with reiterating, everything we just talked about is it's a lot of fun. It's a good way to network with people. It's a good way to build friendships with like-minded people. And it's just getting more and more popular. I think they just went over like 45,000 active members in the sport. So it's easy to get into. It's awesome to get into. It's a lot of fun, and I think I definitely would recommend it to a lot of people.
Yeah,
to
I'd agree with that.
go shoot a match.
Well,
and
I
see
think
what
that'll
it's
be
all
the end
about.
of this episode. Next one, we will be talking about if you don't have access to like a big public range, or you're kind of limited by a big city. So, yeah.